Thank you very much, and very glad to be here. And I'd like to share some international experience that we have in this area, based on the areas that I've been advising: London University's Imperial College, and also the UK Climate Change Working Group that's advising Downing Street. So I'm going to put some global perspective to Hong Kong and sharing with you, and I'd like to learn also from yourself. What I plan to cover is some key points. What are the mega trends in the world? And then what are the Hong Kong climate challenges, particularly electricity, which is the major CO2 emitter in Hong Kong. Can we achieve carbon neutralities in electricity? We're going to talk about some options that are used globally and how they can apply in Hong Kong. And also carbon solutions. We talk a lot about that, and we'll talk about that. And also I will talk a little bit about the China climate actions that are going on, in which I'm also involved in advising. I've been lucky to be involved in the bilateral working group between the China and UK that's been set up since the two premier visits about 10 years ago. So let's go into it. The mega trends in the world. I like to talk about what are the mega trends that's going on and what are the possible pathways. And very interestingly, a lot of these has been summarized in some very key scenarios, like the shale sky scenarios, plus other government scenario, plus IEA and OECD, which I'm also involved in advising. But very interesting, the mega trend is the energy demands are rising, but energy efficiencies are also improving around the world. There's great transformation going on in the energy sectors globally, with fossil fuel declining and renewables are rising. Coal is not completely dead. It is declining, but there is clean coal that are going on in emerging economies. And also coal is very important in Hong Kong, with 50% of its power generated from Hong Kong at this moment in time. Decarbonizations and renewable, we heard a lot about it, but technologies are rising, costs are really reducing very fast, and I'll show you examples of that. Future pathways to achieve the 1.5%. We discussed a lot of that in London, we discuss it also in other institutions around the world. Very important government policies, and you heard from our speakers this morning how important these are. But energy, carbon emission systems, and also disclosure system, the task force on climate finance disclosure is very, very important to drive companies to achieve this. Renewables, very important. And now the new trend is DDD, digitalization, decarbonization, decentralization. And I'll talk more about that. How that can be applied to Hong Kong specifically. Improving energy efficiencies and savings, very important. Electrification is rising globally and in Hong Kong as well. And really the rate is going to triple in the next 20 to 30 years globally. And really Hong Kong has to jump on this moving train or else you'll be left behind. Hydrogen, looking to the next generation. Hydrogen economy is really actively being worked on by different countries. Japan, for example, there's a blueprint. Does Hong Kong have a blueprint? Carbon solutions, really worked on by globally, and there are projects already running. There's 2 trial projects in China that is going on. Is Hong Kong going to join this? Industrial transformation and innovation is actually a great development area. I think Hong Kong can take advantage of that. Green low-carbon city transportations, we've talked about that. We heard very good discussions of that already. So let's have a look. The energy transformation is happening. What I've talked about, let me show you the example. In the work I've done together with the International Energy Authority in Paris, you see in the last 20, 30 years is a fossil fuel world. But now if you look towards the next 30 years, is totally going to be a green energy world with clean fuel. And UK, as an example, this is already happening. Look at the dive in coal. And to illustrate that, globally, in the last 5 years, this is the figure from the International Energy Renewable Association. 1 trillion of investment has already gone into renewables globally. And this trend is growing at 200 billion per year in the next 5 years. So this is a moving train. Whether Hong Kong joins it or not, the world is moving on. And this is very important. The International Renewable Association has actually summarized the boost of renewable investment on employment. It has generated 10 million jobs globally, and 4 million of that is in China. China is investing 360 billion in renewables, and this is really a positive impact on the economy. We've talked about Hong Kong's carbon reduction plans, and it's ambitious, but looking ahead by 2050, by 2070, it has to be more ambitious to achieve carbon neutrality. And you have a serious problem because 68% of your CO2 is generated by electricity. And why is that? Because 50% of the electricity is generated by coal. This is unheard of in any financial hubs in the world. So there's very good plans, as Agnes has talked about reducing that by gas and electricity, and these are very good. But looking ahead, there's more ambitious work that needs to be done. And there are different options that you can achieve carbon neutral energy that are being practiced around the world in institutions and companies that I'm advising. For example, I list some of the options here. These are renewables to clean power, waste to energy, big area, 6 new waste to energy plants being built in China, funded by World Bank loans. Energy efficiency savings, we heard about that, and that's a great area. Natural gas import, already happening in many countries, including Hong Kong. Hong Kong is already importing gas from China at this stage in time. Gas, renewable nuclear imports, we heard about 25% of Hong Kong's electricity already imported from nuclear plants in China. Can we do more? Options need to be studied. Distributed power systems. We heard that these are going on, and this will be more and more important. And that's the global trend, microgrids and distributed power systems. Carbon, CCS, carbon solutions. I'll talk a little bit more. These are being developed globally. There are many trials going on, and I'll talk about that. Green road transport, we talk about this. And let's go on. Renewable technologies, there's a lot of, I'm not going to talk about the technical aspects. If people are interested, we can answer that. But what is important is that there's been tremendous innovations and improvements in technology, but particularly in solar and wind. The important thing is that the price of solar and wind has gone down by about 25% to 75% in the last 5 years. And if we look ahead by 2020, it is expected, the International Renewable Association is now forecasting that renewable technology will be compatible to fossil fuel. So as a power generator and for government to consider, you've got to take that into consideration. There is really no economic driving case to continue to burn coal or burn oil or burn gas because renewable is economically compatible. So in your long-term master plan, I'm very happy to advise you, because I've advised similar government to consider that. You've got to look beyond the current time, and in the next 5 years, this is going to be a breakthrough in your thinking. Carbon capture and storage, a lot of speakers have talked about that. It is important. There are many projects going. In China itself, there's already 2 projects going on in Jining and Yinjiang. And this is going to grow more because the cost of carbon capture and storage is also coming down to about $50 per ton, like in the Boulder plant in Canada. But more interestingly and more excitingly is looking beyond carbon capture. You capture the carbon, what are you going to use it for? Other companies are already doing that. Other cities and countries are already doing that. There are plants that converts the carbon into chemical feedstock, into other useful materials. And that's very exciting. You're really converting a waste, upgrading it, adding value to feedstock. And plants are already working. There are full-scale industrial plants, for example, that is working in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, which collects all the CO2 from an industrial site and converting into chemical feedstock. You can go and see that. I can arrange for you to go and see that if you want to. And Hong Kong can think about this. And a lot of this is already taken into consideration in the Chinese master plan. They have the 13th five-year master plan in which a key pillar is ecological civilization, where they have earmarked more than 630 billion. And we are advising and discussing this. Sustainable development, environment, renewables are all very important. So summarizing, Hong Kong, really there's a tremendous urgency for Hong Kong to meet up its climate and carbon challenges. There are many options available which we can share from global experience for Hong Kong's thinking. I'm very glad there are engagements going to take place, and we can contribute to this discussion. So thank you very much.